Okay, good day, grade 12. My name is Beatrice Maluleke, geography teacher from Kenilworth Junior Secondary School. Okay, we are going to do geography today. We are going to do urban settlement. So let us go through what is it that we need to cover today. Okay, the first thing that we are going to look at is the concepts, urban settlement concept. Concepts are very important, grade 12, because these are the ones that help you to understand the content. So when we are explaining, you need to take note of what is it that you need to consider when you are writing your concepts. Okay, another thing that we are going to look at, we'll look at how site and situation affect urban settlement. And the third thing that we are going to look at, we'll look at classification of urban settlement according to function. And the last thing that we are going to look at is urban hierarchy. Okay, so with everything that we are going to cover today, you need to take note of, we deal with concepts because they are the ones that are very important. Okay, let's start with the introduction. What is urban settlement? We cannot be able to explain what is urban settlement before we look at what is rural settlement, because rural settlement, it's the one that helps us to know that urban settlement is developing. So let us look at what is a rural settlement. Not too long you did rural settlement, where you define it as an area whereby primary activities dominate, and they can be described as unifunctional. When we talk about unifunctional, which means we've got one primary activity that is dominating. So we need to take note of that. Okay, let us look at how do we define urban settlement. How does the urban settlement differ with rural settlement? With urban settlement, we look at, it's a built-up settlement like a town, city, that can be described as a multifunctional, as it focuses on secondary, tertiary, and quaternary activities. So these are the things that you need to take note of. The difference between urban settlement and rural settlement. Here we have unifunctional, which means it's only one function that is dominating. But when we look at urban settlement, it has more than one function. That is why we look at secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. Okay, let us look at how did the urban settlement originated. We need to know that urban settlement does not just originate. It starts by being a rural settlement. And when it says rural settlement, where people are busy doing agriculture, they do farming, they get raw material. And then when they used to be together getting the raw material, they realized that they are not getting productivity in agriculture. So they decided that we need to do what? We need to do something else. They started making clothes. They started trading among themselves. They started manufacturing. After manufacturing, then there was a development of villages. When the villages develop, we find that now there is a what? There is a town. And then it grows up until it becomes a city. Today, when we speak, we have got more than 55% of people who are living in urban areas. That's how urban settlement did originate. Let us look at this concept that we have. Okay, when we look at the concept, we have urbanization. The urbanization, okay, we look at is the process by which an increase in proportion or the percentage of a country's population that are living in urban areas. So you take note of proportion and percentage. Let us look at the diagram that I have here. This picture is showing us there is A, where we show people who are living in urban areas. And we do have buildings. We check at the back of these people, you have the apartment. These apartments are big to accommodate these people, just because if you are talking about urbanization, which means there are people who are living in cities and they are working in these cities, and they live in the cities, they work in cities. Another thing about urbanization that you need to take note of, these people, when they are living in cities, they now minimize to use their private transport, but they focus on public transport. That is why we are talking about urbanization. Okay, let us look at the next concept. The next concept that we have is urban growth. Okay, how do we define urban growth? When we look at urban growth, it's a natural increase in the number of people who are living in urban settlement. Okay, let us look at the diagram, at the picture. When we look at this picture, we have got so many people who are in the city. So that is why we are talking about the number of people now have increased. That is why we are talking about urban growth. Let us move on to the next concept. Okay, with the next concept, we have urban expansion. Okay, with the urban expansion, we look at the physical growth of urban settlement that link to the what? To the increase in the population of the number of people, which means we have got so many people in the city. When we look at point A, we have got buildings that are this side. So it shows that the more we have more people in the city, then the physical structure of the city will grow, which means they will build more structures to accommodate people who are there. That is why you see by B, these structures now, they are extending, they are moving out, even if they are not the same structure, which means we've got more people who are being added in cities. That is why we've got so many people who are in the cities. So the structure will be what? Will be extending. Okay, let us move on to the next concept, which is urban sprawl. When we look at urban sprawl, we are looking at, there is an unplanned in the city or haphazard expansion. Okay, what do we mean by that? Okay, let us look at the diagram. When we look at this picture here, we have got the buildings that are in the CBD. And then when you look at it, behind that, the city is growing wide, spreading outside. It's spreading outside. And most of the people who are building here, they build along the road, which means they move, they divert from the plan of the city. The city was supposed to have their own planning. So people come and build anyhow. So this one, it grows to any direction. That's how we explain urban sprawl. Okay, let us look at the concept of the rate of urbanization, and we look at the level of urbanization. Okay, these two, you need to take note of what is the rate of urbanization and what is level of urbanization. With the rate of urbanization, we are talking about the speed, how fast urbanization takes place. Okay, and when we look at level of urbanization, we look at the total percentage of total population living in urban areas at a given time. So when we look at these two concepts, okay, how fast the urbanization is taking place. But when we look at level of urbanization, which means we look at the percentage, which means we can be able to indicate, grade 12, that in 2020 or 2025, we'll have more people who are living in urban areas. That is why we are looking at a given time. Okay, let us look at the graph that I gave you here. It's very important, grade 12, to look at the graph. The graph in the exam, you'll have different kinds of graph. You'll have a pie chart with data that you need to study on it, and you'll have a bar graph, you'll have a line graph. Let us look at how can we interpret graphs. Okay, the most important thing when you are interpreting a graph, you need to take note of the heading of the graph is very important because it tells you about what is it that is happening in this graph. Okay, when we read the graph, it's saying that it's a global population growth, and it's showing us what? Urbanization that is expected trend between 1950 and to 2040. Okay, when we look at the global population growth, which means when you look at the graph, you look at the right-hand side, this side. On the right-hand side, they show you the total population of people who are living in the whole world. Okay, this is the number. It's very important to take note of. It's in billions, because sometimes they will find that they've indicated 1,000 or 100. So when you are studying the graph, take note of, here they've given you in billions or thousands. Okay, when we look at the other side, on the right-hand side, you have urbanization that is written in percentage. Okay, when we look here, which means you need to take note of, they have given you in percentage. And then when you come inside the graph, you do have the key. These key are very important. for you to utilize it when you are interpreting the graph. First, you look at the green color. Even if in the exam, unfortunately, you are not going to get colorful pictures, you will get black and white. Okay, but it's very important for you to know that the world is represented by which line here. And then less developed regions are represented by what here. Okay, so it's very important for you to know how to utilize these key symbols to interpret the graph. Let us take an example of, on the x-axis or on the y-axis, we already indicated that we have the total population. And then on the x-axis, they gave us years. So if you look at the years, you have got the years 1950, 1980, 2010, and 2040. But if you check the in-between, they didn't put anything. So what you need to take note of when you are interpreting the graph, let us look at an example here. When you look here, it's 1950, and then you have 1980. You must check what is the difference between the two. Okay, you see that there are 30 years in between. So you must be able to check what is the year that is in the middle here. Oh, half of 30 will be 15. Then you add on that one, which means you are going to have 1965 here, which is very important for you to estimate that, because sometimes they can ask you what was the total percentage of people who are living in urban areas in a less developed regions. With less developed regions, we are talking about LEDs countries. With more developed countries, we are talking about MEDCs countries. So when they ask you this, you need to take note of, you need to be able to estimate, because they ask you about what will be the percentage in 1965. What was the percentage of people living in urban areas in the less developed regions? So which means you come and to check, and then you estimate. You must go straight and check if you are going to get it right there. So when you estimate, you look here, it's 1965, and then you go straight and estimate on that one. So that's very important when you are interpreting the graph. So you take note of that when you are interpreting graph, because sometimes when they ask you, they want to check if you did understand everything. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The next one is, we are talking about the characteristics that determine the classification of settlement, which means settlement is being characterized by three things. Okay, the first one, we have the pattern. Okay, when we talk about the pattern, the urban settlement is far different from rural settlement, because here we talk about everything is over-concentrating. Okay, we have got so many buildings, we have got so many functions, we have got so many people, we have got so many things that are taking place in the city. So it's very important for you to take note of that. So the pattern of urban settlement, it's nucleated. What do we mean by that? Which means buildings are close together, they are clustered together, unlike in urban areas, in rural areas, where you find that one is here, one is there. Okay, and the second thing that we look at the size of settlement. Urban settlement, it's being arranged according to size. We have, in rural settlement, you did talk about, we have isolated farmstead, you did talk about, you have hamlet, you have village. But now we look only at urban settlement. What is it that we need to consider when it comes to size? We have town, we have city, we have metropolis, we have conurbation, we have megalopolis. Okay, this one is the smallest of the urban settlement in size. This one is bigger than the town. We'll explain it later. And lastly, we have function. With function, when we define the concept of urban settlement, we did indicate that it has multifunctional, okay, where we consider what? Secondary activities, tertiary activities, and quaternary activities. Okay, let us look at classification of this settlement. Okay, when we look at this classification of settlement in this pyramid here, okay, when we look at the bottom, you have isolated farmstead, you have rural hamlet, you have a village. These three is the one that you did as what? Is a rural settlement. It's a rural settlement. But when it comes to urban settlement, we have a town, we have a city, we have metropolis, we have conurbation, we have megalopolis. Okay, let us look at the two arrows that we have in this pyramid here. We have the arrow on the right-hand side, this side. Okay, this arrow is showing us the population number and the services, number of services that increases. What does it tell us? It tells us that when you are at the bottom of the pyramid, you have got less services that are taking place, and the number of people here are few. But the minute you go higher up, the number of population, it increases, and number of services or function, it increases when you go up. Okay, on the other side, they gave us an arrow. They said the number of settlement increases, and they point an arrow down. What you need to understand is when we talk about the number of settlement in rural areas, there are more of the settlement in rural areas than in urban areas. So when you go up to the pyramids, you go up the pyramids, the number of these settlements, they decreases. But here, we need to take note of this more settlement that we have here. When we have more settlement, which means there are more, but they are small. But when you go higher up, these settlements are few, but they are large. That is why you have got many populations that are living up there and the many services that we found in that place. Okay, let us look at the definition of this settlement, because it's very important for you to identify it and know it exactly, that when I'm talking about a town, what does a town look like? So that's what we are going to look at now. Let us look at this one. It is a town. How do we define a town? A town is a densely populated urban area. And I gave an example of Harrismith or Beaufort West. Okay, let us look here. We are seeing buildings that are close to one another. You can even see that there is a church there. There are shops here. So this is an example of a town that you need to take note of. Okay, and then let us look at the next urban settlement type. This one is bigger than a town that we're talking about. A city is a large town where many people do what? They live and work. And then we do have an example of that. Okay, this is an example of a city, but we put the example of Bloemfontein. Look how big is this city. Okay, so that shows that the first picture that you saw where there is a town, this one is far bigger than that. That is why you see that people can be able to do what? To live in. How do we see that people live in? You see you have many apartments, the high apartments that are here. People can be able to live in the city and they can be able to work in the city. Okay, let us look at the third biggest urban settlement. Okay, here we talk about metropolis. It's a main city in a region which is surrounded by dependent towns. We take an example of Durban. Okay, when we look here, we have Durban this side, but this Durban is surrounded by what? By towns that they can be able to come and utilize the function that we have in this city of Durban, in this metropolis of Durban. So that is the thing that you need to take note of. Let us look at the next one. We have conurbation. When we talk about conurbation, you need to take note of how do we define conurbation. What is it that you need to understand when it comes to conurbation? Conurbation, we are talking about jointed cities and towns. So that's the thing that we need to take note of. So this one, it's more bigger than a metropolis. It's a large urban area. It's formed by the growth and the coalescence of a number of cities, towns. We gave an example of Johannesburg Metro, including Midrand. So let us look at this alphabet A. You see the circle that we have here. When we check here, all these places that are here, it's an example that we have in South Africa that we do have a conurbation, where we have got cities and towns that are joined together. So if they ask you what are the things that made up a conurbation in South Africa, so you can be able to name these towns and cities that we found in this circle. That's how we explain conurbation. Okay, let us look at megalopolis. This one is the largest of them all. Okay, This one, we don't have an example of this in South Africa. We only have an example of this in America, but in even other parts of the world, we do have that kind of an example. What is a megalopolis? It's a gigantic urban complex formed when a number of conurbations joined together. Okay, so here you will find that big cities and big towns, they are merged together. They are jointed together. That is why we do have an example of megalopolis. We have an example in northeastern seaboard of United States of America. That's the one that I showed you in this picture here. Okay, let us look at the next one. Okay, here we are going to look at how site and situation affect urban settlement. Okay, when we look at a site and a situation, there are things that we need to take note of. Okay, when we look at a site, we'll define it and we mention the factors that they need to follow when they want to build a settlement. So when people want to build a settlement, they first consider a site. What is a site? Let us define what is a site. A site is an actual place where settlement is built. So before they want to build a settlement, they will look for a site. And then after looking for this site, there are factors that we need to consider if we want to build a settlement. Okay, the first factor that we'll look at is there any availability of water in this area? So before they build a settlement, they look at availability of water. Okay, why they have to look at availability of water? You know that water is essential. You need water to do each and every activity. So they have to check that they do have access to water. Okay, and the next thing that we need to look at is drainage. What do we mean by drainage? We look at the soil that we find in that place, in that site that we want to build a settlement. We look at, is this soil that we have here is going to allow water to seep in, to infiltrate, or it's going to leave water to be on top and flooded the area. So obviously they look at a place where the soil will be able to drain water, and even to drain water away from the place to avoid flooding in that urban settlement. And then we have the next one, which is underlying rock structures. With these underlying rock structures, you remember when I was showing you the pictures of urban settlement. You see those apartments, those big skyscrapers, those tall buildings. When they are built, they need a proper foundation. So they have to check what are the underlying rock structures that we have here, so that when they build the structure will be reinforced, it will stand without being distracted that it can fall in future. So they look at that. And then the next thing that we look at is a relief. Okay, boys and girls, when we talk about the relief, we are talking about how high or how flat is this place. We look at the slope. Is it gently or is it steep? So most of the areas where, when they are building settlement, they prefer to build on the flat slope. Why flat slope? Is because it's cheap and affordable. Yes, it can look nice when you look at a settlement that is being built in a steep slope. But when you build it in a gently slope, it's very cheap, it's affordable. So that is why they choose that one. And then we do have availability of resources, which is building material. Is there any enough material that they can be able to utilize when they are building this settlement? And lastly, they look at, is there the aspect of a slope? When we talk about the aspect of a slope, we look at which direction the slope that faces, which means the direction which the slope faces. Okay, mostly we are in the southern hemisphere. Okay, the slope that will prefer, the direction that will prefer, it's north-facing slope. Why? Because we'll receive what? Direct sun's rays. So they check on that one. Okay, let us look at the situation of urban settlement. When we look at situation, it's not the same as site. When we look at situation, the situation, which means this place is already there, it's existing. So people, they check the advantage. Are we going to be able to trade easily? Are we going to be able to access a place of market or other places? in different directions. So when we define a situation, this is how we define it. Okay, we say it refers to location of the settlement in relation to the surrounding. Okay, there are factors that we need to look at. Okay, what are these functions? The factors, sorry. Okay, we look at transport and trade and access to what? To market. I gave you a picture. Okay, when you look at this nice picture here, it's showing us that there are roads that are there. We have roads that are going to this direction. You have roads that are going to that direction. There are roads that are going to this direction. There are roads that are going to this direction. So with that, they can be able to access different parts of the place in order for them to do what? To have access to go to market and even to make their trading to be possible. So this is very important when it comes to situation. Okay, let us look at the function. What is a function? Okay, when I was explaining what is a function, when we talk about a rural settlement, we said a rural settlement have got one function. Okay, when it's have one function, which means immediately the functions start to develop. Now they will start manufacturing raw material. When they manufacture raw material, that's where you find that now it's no longer going to be a primary activity, now it's secondary activity. Okay, so the purpose of original reason for the establishment of the settlement is a function. The more the function increases, the more we have a type of what? Of a set of urban settlement. Okay, let us look at urban settlement. We did indicate that urban settlement is multifunctional, which means it has so many functions. When it has so many functions, which means we are talking about what? It has secondary functions where they do manufacturing, where we have many industries. Okay, we have tertiary where we talk about services. We look at quaternary where we talk about the collection, analysis that is being done and transmission of information. For example, IT research. And these ones will do it when we are doing economic geography later. Okay, classification of urban settlement according to function. Okay, let us look at how do we classify that. There are three categories of settlement here. We have got the first one, we have the central place town, we have trade and transport, we have specialized town. Okay, with this classification, with the central place town, what you need to take note of here is that the central place town is always at the center of the sphere of what? Of influence. What do we mean by that? Which means we'll have a function at the center, and then people around that's a function will come and support it. So that is why we talk about will be having what? The sphere of influence, because people will be coming from different directions to support that central place. Okay, so that's the first urban settlement according to what? To function. And then the second one, we've got trade and transport towns. What are the trade and transport towns? When we talk about that, these ones, they usually develop along transport routes, junctions, or break-off bulk point. Here we've got three types of trade and transport. The first one is break-off bulk points. What is that? That's where you find that there is a change of mode of transport. Let us look at a picture. Okay, when we talk about break-off bulk points, I just indicated that you need to take note of. Okay, here there is a sea. There is a road, and here we do have a railway line. Okay, when by the sea, when the ship comes, it comes with goods and come and offload it here by the harbor. Okay, now just because it came by a ship, to move the goods from here, you can use what? It's either road or you can use what? You can use railway line. Okay, so that there is a change of mode of transport. That's the thing that you need to take note of. Okay, let us look at the second one. The second one, we do have the junction town. What is a junction town? Okay, when we look at this one, we do have a railway line. that it's intersecting in one place. So people take advantage of, in this place, there are two main railway lines that are intersecting. So when they intersect, they take advantage of, they come and build a town around that area. That is why we take an example of DR. Okay, we have got the main railway line that comes from Cape Town to Northern Cape there, and then we do have the one that is coming from PE and come and meet here. So that is why this town here developed. Okay, we've got the third one. The third one is a gateway or gap town. When we talk about a gap town, we are talking about a town that is located. It's very important for you to take note. It's a town that is located at a gap between hills, providing what? A good defensive site, or we do have a road that it's a center that leads to the trade and market function. Let us look at the picture. We have the picture that's showing us A here. We do have a hill here and we have a hill here. People come and build here. So you find that there's a road that is passing in between in order for them to take their goods here to go to another side. So that's why we are talking about this is a gap town. It can be a hill, it can be a mountain. Okay, let us look at the third one, the third category. We have specialized town. With a specialized town, we look at this town specializing with one function. Okay, let us look at the first one. So when we look at the specialized town, you take note of they specialize with one function. We have mining towns. Immediately you look at mining towns, which means the main activity that we find here is what? It's mining. We gave an example of Palabura in Limpopo. Okay, we do have the second one. We have the resort or recreation towns. This one, you take note of, you'll find that in this area there are natural places that are having, it can have what? Warm water sources, springs, or this place is found on the coastline. We have an example of the towns that have developed next to the coastline, which is Durban and Cape Town. We find that we can have other places that are developing because in those areas they have warm water sources, or we do have the springs that are oozing out from natural. No one is taking that water out of the place. So people take advantage of that and come and build in those areas. Okay, let us look at the third one. We do have an industrial town. This industrial town, which means it has what? Imported industries. Okay, we have an example of that in Sasolburg where they are doing oil production. Okay, let us look at the last thing that we need to look at is urban hierarchy. When we look at urban hierarchy, there are things that we need to take note of. What is urban hierarchy? You remember the pyramid that we were having. We were ranking them according to their sizes, okay, and even where I have explained to you that services, they increase when you go higher up the pyramid. So here, when we define urban hierarchy, we are saying that it's a ranking of urban settlement according to what? According to size and complexity. Okay? The urban hierarchy is classifying people and function in a town or a city. When I was explaining to you, I did indicate that in the pyramid that we had that time, we were having on the lower hierarchy, which means at the bottom of the pyramid, we have many settlements. But up, we've got some, in the higher part of the settlement, of the pyramid, we've got higher rank. So these are the things that you need to take note of. We've got few functions, but many settlements, many people. But when you go up, the functions are increasing, services are increasing, and we've got many people that we found in the higher rank. Okay, let us look at central place theory, where we have got the theorists who explain what is a central theory. We have Walter Christoller, who did indicated to us that how is this central theory? Okay, when we look at a central theory, Christola did indicate that we have a central place. A central place must have what? A surrounding that is being supported by that function. So people who are around the area will come and utilize that function. So first thing, when you look at this, we do have the keys. We have the boundaries, which are these big lines, these lines that are here. And then we do have a village, we have market town, we have a town, we have a city. Okay, when we look at a central place that you hear, okay, all these villages that are around here, they are supposed to be supported by this one. Okay, those that are this side, they are supported by this one. Okay, if they don't get what they look here, if you see these boundaries that are here, okay, these ones will be able to come. So when we look here, we've got small sphere of influence. But when you come here, these people who are around here, in this circle here, they will be able to do what? To come and utilize the town. So the function of this place is far bigger when we talk about this one, because this one is a town. Okay, when we look at this function that is here, it will have more sphere of influence. But when we look here, they will have what? Small sphere of influence. So Christola did indicate that if it was a circle, when this central place grow, the surrounding will overlap. So he indicated this one of hexagon. That's the one that you usually get in the exam. But even the one of the circle that does overlap, you get it in the exam. And then I will be able to show you later on that one. Okay, let us look at the concept of central place theory. We have the threshold population. We have the range. Let's first look at this diagram that is here. We have the market. We have people around the market. If you check, you have people here. You have people here, that's what we call them consumers, that are able to come and support this function here. And then you do have even people out there. Okay, so let us look at, I said we have threshold population, we have range. So if we have range, which means, what is a range? It is a distance that people are willing to travel to come to the market. What is threshold population? These are the people that are supporting the function in that area. Okay, let us look at the definitions. We have the threshold population. As I've already indicated, the minimum number of people required to support a business to survive, not just to be there. Okay, and then the next one, we do have sphere of influence. What is the sphere of influence? I was showing you when I was showing you the hexagon of Christola, that it's an area where people come to make use of the services in what? In a town or a city. Okay, range of goods. What is the range of goods? We've already looked at the diagram where we indicated that it is a distance. So you take note of that, is the distance that these people are able to do what? To travel in order for them to go and buy what they want to utilize. And then lastly, we have a market area. What is a market area? It's an area from which businesses draws its customers to come and utilize the function. Okay, let us look at the sphere of influence in detail. Okay, we have three places, central places. We have central place A, you have central place B, you have central place C. There are things that you need to take note of when it comes to that. What is it that you need to take note of? We have the sphere of influence of C, sphere of influence of A, B, and we have the sphere of influence of A. Okay, this is what I said here. A larger settlement A has what? Greater sphere of influence. What do we mean by that? Which means this A will get people who are coming from this all area here to come and utilize this function here. Okay, but why they have to come here? Because it has what? A wider range. It has what? A wider range. And it has what? It has more function that attract people to come to this place. Okay, but when we look at C, C does not have wider range like A, but it's having what? A small range, and then it does have what? Small sphere of influence. That is why we said a small village C has only a village store selling what? A daily newspaper, foods, such as what? Bread or milk. Therefore, it will have what? A small sphere of influence. Okay, we have there are low order and high order functions or services. What do we mean by that? What are the low order and high order functions and services? Okay, when we talk about low order goods, things that you need to take note of these are the things that we usually need each and every day when we are at home. We want to go and buy. When we go and buy, we don't travel far because we want to use it. Like when we are buying bread or milk or meat, we don't go very far. So these things are, the low order goods are cheap everyday needs. And then we don't find them very far. They are close by. These are the example: bread, milk. Convenience stores, it's more stores, general dealers. When it comes to that, right now when we are having this COVID-19, we are not allowed to go to very far to do our groceries, but we need to go to our spaza shop just nearby. So here is the thing where we get these low order goods. We don't go very far in order for us to get what we need to utilize daily. And then we talk about services. When we talk about services, we talk about schools, we talk about clinics, it can be police station. These ones, they are not far. They are close where we are living each and every time. Okay, but we do have high order goods. High order goods, they are very expensive. These are the specialized items, the luxury ones. This one, you need to go to a place where you find them. Like you want to buy a car. You can travel to go very far because you are looking for a good model of the car, or you want the best car that you want. So you'll go far. Or furniture, you don't buy it each and every day. So these are the things that you won't go each and every time to look for those things. And then we do have low and high order centers. This is the place where we get these things, these goods and functions. Okay, here we are indicating that some towns have large variety of services, high order service. The sphere of influence of this type of a town will be larger, which means if you have got so many functions, remember we said when a settlement becomes big, it has more of what? Of the functions. So if it has more services, it will have what? The sphere of influence will be larger. Okay? But if we have a small town with what? Low order functions, which means it will only attract what? It will only attract less people. So that is why we have what? Smaller sphere of influence. Okay. Let us look at this pyramid here that is showing us what we're explaining. Okay, when we look at this side here, we have got small population at the bottom of the pyramid, and then population of settlement. It's large this side, we've already talked about it, and then we've got many settlement at the bottom, we've got few people, we've got many settlement, but we do have what? Number of settlement are doing at a few up there. Okay, let us look at, this is what you need to take note of. What is it that we have at the bottom of the pyramid? We've got low order central places. What are the low order central places? It's a place where they sell what? Essential things that we need to utilize each and every day. But we do have highest order central, which means here we have got what? Those things that are having luxury things that we need to go there once in a long time. But here you can even get the high order and even the low order functions in that place. Okay, let us look at our table here. In this table, it's a summary of what we're explaining when we are talking about central place concepts. Okay, when we look at the table that I have here, I have the column for order, type of settlement, and the example that we found in South Africa. Okay, look, when we look at the first one, we have got high order places. Okay, the high order places, that's where we get what? We get those expensive things that we don't utilize each and every day. So what will be the population? We'll have what? Large population. We'll have large range. We'll have what? Multitude of what? Of services. But here you get what? Low order and high order services. Why? You can be able to find that there is a big supermarket that is selling those things that you need daily. But when you go that side, you are going to buy what? A car. But you can be able to buy those things that you need daily. Okay, when we come to the low order place, here we have got small threshold population. We have small range. And we do have what? Few services, mainly low order functions. We don't have high order functions when we come to this one. So these are the examples. These are the type of settlement, and these are the examples. So only for this column here, that's where you get what? Low order places. Okay, let us look at the activity. When we look at the activity, it's very important, grade 12, the activity that you are having here, the activity that we are having here, we have, the activities that we have here, we have the question paper that you are going to do at the end of the year or even in June or September. It consists of 4 questions. So you need to take note of the question 1 and question 2, it's for geomorphology and climatology. But question 3 and question 4, that's where you get the questions of rural settlement and urban settlement. So when we attempt a question, you are given an annexure and with the question paper. So first study the annexure, understand this annexure, it's about what? Okay, let us look at this one. It's good in geography, they always give you the heading of the diagram that you are studying. Okay, we take note of here, they are talking about settlement classification hierarchy. So which means you need to remember that we did a hierarchy of settlement. Okay, let us study the figure. This side we have got number of services. Look at the arrow, it's showing you that the number of services are few, but when you go up, they increase. This side, they show us the population size. What did they say? What did they indicate to this graph? They show us that the number of people increases when you go up. Okay? And then now you can be able to do what? To check if you can be able to label everything that is here. Let us look at, we have got farmstead, hamlet, we have village. This one is for rural settlement. But for the one that we're doing today, it's what? It's a town that is smaller than a city, that is smaller than metropolis, and then we do have what? Conurbation, but we still have what? Megalopolis, that is bigger than what? Conurbation. So these are the things that you need to remind yourself. Okay, when you attempt a question, there are questions in that question 3 and 4. There is 3.1 and 3.2, 4.1 and 4.4, 4.2. Always check. They are checking the understanding of concept. Hence, today we're busy doing what? The concept. You just check how much did you understand that. Let us look at the first question here. They are indicating that you name the settlement type that will be found by A. Because you have already labeled it, it will be easy for you to come and write that, oh, this one, A is a what? Is a village. Okay? And then you look at the second one. Why will B have a large sphere of influence? Okay, if you did understand what we're doing, you'll look at B. What is it that we have by B? You have got what? More people. What is more people? Which means they have more customers. So B has a large sphere of influence. Why? Because of what? They have what? More threshold population. That's the answer that you need to give. Which is the smallest settlement on the hierarchy? here you need to take note of, today we're doing urban hierarchy, but here they're asking you about the hierarchy of both rural settlement and urban settlement. What is it that you need to look at here? You look at the bottom, then you get what? It's a farmstead. Okay, the next question they're asking, will the town or a city have higher threshold population? Okay, when you look here, this is a town. You have the number of people here. Okay, you look at B. B is metropolis. When you look at metropolis, it's having more people. But they're asking you between what? A city and a town. Okay, town is having more people than, city is having more people than town. So it's a town that will have what? Have large, it's a city that will have, sorry about that. Okay, it's a city that will have high threshold population. Okay, what is the settlement larger than conurbation? Remember when we're labeling, I did indicate that we do have megalopolis here. So that will be the answer, megalopolis. And then we do have the next question. They said, give reason for conurbation having a larger sphere of influence. Why conurbation have a large sphere of influence? It's because of what? It has more functions. Remember, we said when we go up, functions, they do what? They increase. Okay, and then the second last, will A or B have more high order functions? Obviously, B will have high order functions. And the last question they are asking us about, which urban settlement offers fewest services? Which urban settlement? It's a key there. It's not the whole part, it's this one. So this one is a town. Okay, let us look at the next slide that I gave you. It's the memo to check if you did get it right. Okay, let us look at another activity. With this activity, just look at understanding of urban settlement hierarchy concepts. Remember, today we're dealing with concepts. So even here, they are looking at, did you understand what is a sphere of influence and a range? We have the annexure, as I told you. We have questions. So study the annexure. We have got food and motor vehicles. Check. A is having small range. It's having small sphere of influence when you compare it to what? To B. B is having what? It's having large sphere of influence. It's having wider range. That's how you study your annexure when you want to understand. Okay, let us look at the questions. I want you, when you are answering here, take note of, you consider the questions, they have allocation of marks. Check, because when you are explaining, you need to take note of how marks are being allocated. The first one, they said you define what is a sphere of influence and a range. So, okay, when we look at how to answer that, the sphere of influence, you need to make it a point that there is a key when you are answering, more especially when you are giving a definition. Okay, a sphere of influence, it's in an area around a settlement from which it attracts what? Customers. Always, the definition in geography, it's only allocated for 1 mark. So, but make sure that the key of what is expected in that definition, you show it when you are writing. What is a range? Remember, a range deals with what? With distance. So your answer must have that. Okay, the furthest distance, people are prepared to do what? To travel in order for them to enjoy that particular service that are getting there. Okay, let us look at the second question. Which product, food or cars, have a larger range? Which one has a larger range? Because we have interpreted here, it's easy for you to see that it's cars. That's the answer there. And then said, give reason for your answer. Why? Why it has a larger range? Okay, if you check here, it has so many threshold, the threshold population, the sphere of influence. So when you are giving the reason, you need to take note of, when we look at people who are living in that area, it's covering a larger range. Okay, so people are traveling larger distances in order for them to do what? To buy those cars, those expensive things, instead of buying what? Milk and what? And bread. So when you give reasons here, people, they cannot travel to go and buy milk and bread in far places, but they will travel to go and buy what? Cars. Okay. The next question, they said, comment on threshold population. I want to say something about these words here. There are action verbs that you find here. Okay, when they said comment, describe, I think your teachers have already given you where we have these action words. Make the point that before you go to exam, you practice to understand when they talk about comment, what is it that they want me to do here? What is it that they want me to indicate here? Which means they are indicating that write generally about what? About population, threshold population. So they said comment specifically on this, which means write generally about this when you are answering your answer. On what? Require motor vehicle sales. Threshold population. Cars need more people to do what? To support it. So when you are answering it, you need to check. Okay, cars will need what? Large population to make their business sustainable, and they get what? Profits. So remember I said you are commenting, more especially on what? On the threshold population. Let us go back to the next question. Okay, they said describe. That's another keyword. Describe. When you are describing, it's like you are explaining. You are not explaining. You are showing. You are listing the characteristics, which means here you will be able to list, but in relation to give the description, which means you are explaining how does it look like, what they are asking you. They are saying, describe two characteristics of a settlement, which is a low order. Okay, let us look at A, which is our low order. How do I describe the characteristics of this? Okay, it has what? A small range, and it has what? Small of influence. Sphere of influence. Okay, so when you are writing that, these are the characteristics that you need to indicate. A small range and small sphere of influence. Let us look at our last question. They said explain what influences sphere of influence of a settlement B. Okay, when we look at this one, you check the allocation of marks. It's 4 marks. So which means you are expected to explain the influences of sphere of influence. What is it that you know? You know that the sphere of influence, if you have got many functions, sphere of influence, the wider range, many people will be coming here, unlike on this one. So how do we answer this kind of answers? High order goods and services in B, which is our cars, compared to the surrounding areas. People are willing to travel to buy specialized or expensive or luxury things far away than buying those essential things that are needed each and every day. So when you are answering this kind of question, make it a point that you outline, you show the understanding. So in order for you to get 4 full marks, indicate high order goods that are found in B compared to the surrounding, or people are willing to travel to buy specialized products or services. And the last one, you can be able to indicate, you choose any of these 2 will be correct. People travel short distances to take advantage to get those low services. Okay, hope grade 12 you understand this concept. Concepts are very important in geography in order for you to understand settlement geography. Okay, the most important thing that you need to take note of is that now get previous question papers, do question 3 and question 4 to check if you did understand. We have come to the end of the topic of the lesson of today, and then make sure that you don't panic, keep on studying, and you must bear in mind that this thing too will pass, and you'll go back to your schools and you'll write exam. Next year you will be at the university. God bless you. Thank you very much.